So today we're going to talk about how you're going to get your first high-paying job in tech. And this, if you're a first-year student, second-year student, you've been thinking about dropping out, you're struggling, you don't know if it's worth it because it seems like everybody else has had an internship but you. Everybody else has had a job offer but you. And I get it, it's a tough spot to be in. And just so you know a little bit about me, my name is Hector Pineda. I'm a software developer. I graduated about a year ago and I've been working full time. And now, I'm really happy with my job. Prior to working in the tech industry, I was actually only making about $13 an hour, part time, barely, making enough money to get by. But, through a lot of trial and error, and I say a lot of trial and error because, I'm not somebody that just went in, got all A's, finished my degree in 3 years. No, like I graduated, I was almost 31 when I graduated. I dropped out of school and changed majors about 3 times. So, I get it. It's tough to make these adult decisions. It's tough to go back to school. It's tough to, you know, there's good jobs out here for this industry, but I'm sure if you've seen by now, it's pretty competitive. So, what my goal for this video is to basically hold your hand through the path that you're going to take in order to, get your first job, first internship. And again, this is something I kind of had to dig for myself, ask questions around, and just basically, try a lot of different things with the hopes of getting lucky. But thankfully, thank God, I was able to find a good internship, a good job, and I want to pass that forward to the next person that find themselves in the same spot I found myself in, right? So we look at this here in my little chart here. You've probably read it by now, and again, it's the computer science student trajectory, right? And it's, you have all these people right there, amazing programmers. So you get the top of the, cream of the crop internships. And because of that, they end up with an amazing, spotless resume. And boom, at the end of the graduation, 100K plus salary, some 200K. And all these people, they get these amazing jobs, right? Well, when I was in school, that was everybody else but me, right? And if you're watching this video, if this feels relevant to you, then maybe that's you too, right? And really, that's who I'm making this video for, right? So if you already have your FANG internship, you're already projected to make over 150 a year, this video is definitely not for you because you already got it made. You got to figure it out. This is for the rest of us, right? It's for everybody else that kind of, didn't find themselves in that position for whatever reason, right? And again, this is the pathway. It's a little different. I would say a little simpler, but also probably a little more complicated, right? So what you need to do, it's not any of this, right? What you need to do is complete any programming class, whether that's programming 1, programming 2. You just need to complete one programming class. And then you start making stuff, right? Easier said than done, right? But it really is that simple, right? But I want to emphasize these 2 key points: that as you learn things, you make stuff with the things you learn, right? And the reason why I say that is because when I took my classes, when I was taking my coursework, it was very common for me and other students to feel like we couldn't really work on projects because we didn't know that other thing, right? If we learned one programming language, well, we couldn't make stuff with that because there was people that knew more programming languages, right? If we took an application programming class, well, we couldn't make stuff because we didn't know databases, right? So there was always barriers of knowledge and things we really just kind of, obstacles we create for ourselves, right? Because there was always something else to learn that we didn't know, right? But that's not a good way of thinking, and that really doesn't get you anywhere in terms of, your portfolio, making you a competitive candidate, all that stuff, right? And I'll talk a little more about that, right? So this, I guess you could say this is an elaboration of the earlier method, right? You complete a class, you make stuff, right? So, like any programming, any computer science curriculum or boot camp or, YouTube course, the first thing you did was probably take programming 1, right? Whether that was in Java, Python, C, that was the first class that exposed you to learning how to program, right? And you probably made some cool projects, maybe a list of clients or maybe a calculator, or maybe some kind of simple game, right? But at the end of the day, you learned how to talk to a computer, right? You learn how to express commands in that very particular syntax, right? And boom, just like that, you're a programmer, right? Maybe you weren't a great programmer. Maybe you weren't a great programmer. Maybe you weren't a professional programmer, but a programmer nonetheless, right? And I would argue that from your first hello world, that made you a programmer, right? How How much of an expert you want to become in that, I mean, that's up to you afterwards, right? But your first programming class, boom, you know how to write commands. From here, you can start your path towards making cool stuff, right? Whether that's that simple game we were talking about, or that calculator app. Well, depending on the class you make, depending on the class you take, you should make things with the skills that you gathered. And I would say you don't want to depend solely on the classes and the things that are being taught in school, right? Leverage the fact that you have all these sources to learn new things, such as YouTube. I would highly recommend Udemy, just because a lot of those tutorials, because they are paid courses, the people that make those courses want you to feel like you got out of a lot of value out of those $10 you spent, right? They want you to give them good feedback. They want to get that 5-star review. So Udemy courses definitely walk you through, big projects, but they really hold your hand through them, just like I do. And the expectation is that at the end, you covered so much that you just learned a great deal of things that you wouldn't have otherwise learned without them walking you through it, right? And as you progress your journey in computer science and make cool stuff, well, this cool stuff you make, you get to put it on your resume, right? Now, everybody you have in your classes puts all their stuff that they did in classes, right? And that's where recruiters can kind of start to see, the similarities, right? That you made a calculator app with Java. They made a, what they call a CRUD app with, whatever programming language, right? So when you go out of your way to make stuff with what you already learned, you have more stuff to put on your resume, right? And again, I'm not saying you have to go into YouTube and learn a whole new set of skills. No, if you took programming 1 in Java, then look for projects on YouTube on, projects for beginners in Java. And, you make that, you put it in your GitHub, and then you put it on your resume, right? And as you're doing that, that's going to make you a better programmer, right? The other thing you want to do is, as you put stuff on your resume, you want to start applying for internships. And this one is key. Obviously, the only way you get into internship, I say relationships, I mean internship. The way you get into an internship is you have to apply for them, right? Nobody's going to offer you an internship you didn't apply for. And it's going to be a very common mistake that people don't apply to internships because they feel like their projects, their expertise, their level of knowledge isn't good enough for them. But it's also a very false pretense to be under, because depending on the company you apply for, sure, there's some that want maybe junior, senior candidates, people that are about to graduate, but there's also a lot of companies that have spots to be filled by people at a very junior level, right? The reason why they do that is because the expectation is that since they're kind of investing on you early on, you're going to have a good image of that company. You're more than likely going to want to apply to them when you graduate, right? And also, since they kind of give you a chance early on, they probably, maybe they can get a good deal with you in terms of salary. Right now, that part, I'm not sure. That's my speculation. I don't work in that field of recruitment, but I mean, I would have assumed like, hey, if I give somebody a chance early on, maybe I'm kind of getting them almost at a wholesale price, right? So cool, you make stuff, you put it on your resume, you apply to internships, right? And you apply to internships regardless of whether you have stuff on your resume, right? And again, that's why I have this little arrow from here straight to applying, because applying at the end of the day is a habit. It's a habit, and it has to become a habit, because not that you want to get used to, but you want to be able to understand that rejection is a part of this whole process, right? It's going to happen. Not every internship you apply to is going to accept you, and you shouldn't apply with the, with the expectation that you're just going to get rejected. You just understand that it's a numbers game, right? If you only apply to one internship, you would have to be 100% confident they're going to be the ones that make you an offer, right? But if you apply to 10, you probably have a little bit of a higher chance. If you apply to 50, this and that, then, I guess it's a numbers game, right? And in that sense, I guess it is kind of like relationships, right? Or rather dating, right? The more people you ask out, the more people are going to say yes, right? So other cool stuff, right? You want to start going to events related to your major, hackathons, clubs related to making, development, software development, networking, such as like career fairs, all that kind of stuff. You want to get into that circle and into the habit of attending these things. At the end of the day, you paid for that education. And I know this video is gearing more towards, people going back to school, right? But I believe in boot camps have events and opportunities like this. So anything that they provide you that has potential for you to meet somebody that's in the industry, or that could be recruiting, or that could have something that turns into a job offer in the long run, because you already took the time to pay for this in terms of tuition or fees you paid for the, boot camp. You need to leverage this. And again, because this is where the opportunities for applying to internships come. Now, like applying to a job, right? I'm sure it's happened that maybe when you were a little younger, you applied to a job and people told you to apply online, right? You would go up to a job and they'd say, hey, are you hiring? And they'd say, oh, we're always taking applications, blah, blah, but you can submit an application online. You would submit an application online and you would just never hear from them. But then meanwhile, the friend of the manager, of the supervisor, would get a job there the next week, right? How does that happen? Well, that happens because people that have the job role that's related to hiring, recruitment, do get priority in terms of the say of what applicants have the highest potential of being a good fit for the company, right? So think of it this way, right? You have a stack of 1,000 applications, right? And let's say they're all good applicants. If there's only 10 spots to be filled, it's gonna be the first 10 applicants that that are most qualified are gonna get picked, right? Maybe the 999th applicant would have been the best of them all, but it also takes time and money to go through all those applications, to do all those interviews. And at the end of the day, people are hiring because they're running a business. The business needs to keep growing. Products need to be made, whether that's, a retail shop or software products. People need to be working for the business to stay afloat, right? So it doesn't matter how good or how competitive your application is. If it doesn't get seen, if it's not put in front of the right person, you're never going to get an offer. So that's where all these kind of tie together, right? And then also, these are all things that lead to you getting more, maybe not necessarily offers, but more opportunities, for interviews, right? You might get one because the recruiter, like a project that you had on your resume, and they pass it on to someone. They say, sure, let's give him an interview. You might get one simply because you applied to an internship and nobody else has applied, and you're one of the first ones to apply, so you get an opportunity and an interview. You might get one because the recruiter you met is actually, pretty close to the people that work in processing applications and setting up interviews, right? Or maybe you won third place, second place at a hackathon or something like that, right? And then this is crucial too. You have to get used to practicing interviews, right? Not every interview you have is going to go well. And I can tell you with very clear memory how some of my first interviews went, especially the ones that had technical questions, right? Now, technical assessments, they're a very real part of this industry, and so is not doing good at them, right? Especially if you've never had interviews before, you might feel confident in your technical abilities to answer lead code questions, this and that. It's a whole other topic, but being able to kind of walk through that and get yourself through that part of the process is also going to take some practice. So the more of these things you can do, the more interview opportunities you get. And over time, that's what ends up turning into an offer, right? And again, notice how there's none of these steps say anything about having a 4.0 GPA. None of these steps say anything about learning any one specific stack. None of these steps say anything about learning, any certain number of lead codes per week and practicing and reading them so many times a day. No, that's unrealistic that you're going to be able to learn all these programming languages. That's unrealistic that you're going to be able to learn all these programming languages and all these lead code questions and have time to apply to all these internships. And then there's people that have and can do it. How they did it, that's beyond me. I'm not one of those people. I was very much someone that had to be working on and off while I was in school. Sometimes I would have to take a semester off. I was very much someone that was very nervous during interviews and there was a few where I just completely choked and, just did horribly in the actual technical assessment. And I've been someone that would at times just completely talk myself out of applying for opportunities that, those opportunities, they came and went. And whether it's something I could have done or would have been offered to me, I'm never going to know, right? But again, this pathway, this lets you set up, I would say, like a basic rhythm of you feeling more confident and more, just reassured that the things you're learning and that the steps you're taking lead to an internship and, of course, eventually a full-time job, right? And again, this puts you in a place where you just stop comparing yourself to all these, grandiose stories you see on YouTube about the person that got offered so much money at XY company and they had all these, offices and that. At the end of the day, I mean, that's not you. That certainly wasn't me. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a good job there that you could work in with a company and make a good amount of money. That's going to make all the trouble you went through in getting this degree, in studying and doing all these projects, and that's going to make it worth it in the end. But yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to share with you guys. Again, there's something I had to put together as I went along, because at the end of the day, it just seemed like a very overwhelming thing to me how there was so many intelligent people around me that knew so many things and had so many projects, and they all had perfect resumes, and they all had 2 or 3 offers for full-time employment before graduating, this and that. I just wanted one internship. I wanted to not be a part of that horror statistics where you graduate college and you can't find a job. And luckily for me, I was able to find people to spend time with that were also working towards getting the resumes better, the projects better. And I think that also helped me too, right? So that's probably secret tip. If you watch till the end of this video, find people to spend time with that are going to inspire you to meet this goal of getting that internship or full-time job offer, right? If you find that your classmates or maybe even friends that you're going through with this degree are constantly complaining about how they can't get an internship, they can't get an interview, they can't get a full-time offer, and that seems to be the environment that you're surrounded with, I would recommend maybe not necessarily just outright removing those people from your life, but you definitely want to put yourself in a circle of people, those that already got to where you want to be, right? And you should definitely ask them how they did it, what projects helped them. And somebody that really wants to help you, which most people will be happy to share what their experience was like. And if somebody tries to give you some vague advice about how, they just do lead code 4 hours in the morning from 4 a.m. and how they just learn a new programming language every other week, then those people are just gaslighting you, and they're just trying to gatekeep something that they really don't have to gatekeep. But definitely try to join either one of the school clubs or maybe even a Discord server that has people with that goal in mind. People that can kind of guide you in the right direction. So I think that's going to be it for today. I thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and I honestly wish you the best of luck in this journey. I know it's not an easy degree. I know it's especially not easy if you're working, doing some other stuff aside from going to school. But believe me, it's worth it. And if you're enjoying the work, if you're enjoying the classes, if you just get that burst of dopamine when the project finally compiles and you finally turn it in, then I would say keep at it. There's going to be a lot of opportunity once you graduate. This degree definitely goes a long way, and it's going to provide you with a lot of opportunities in the future. So until then, best of luck, and keep at it.